We have a lot of fantastic topics, but before we will start, I will do more than happy if you can explain to our audiences what is your role and how it fits into the USA cyber ecosystem, because it's a new role.
It is. Well, Franco, let me first say thanks for having me, and glad to be here. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this is my first time in Israel, so it's you've been very generous host, INCD, the organizer, so much appreciated. But you are right. My role, the principal cyber advisor to the Secretary of the Army, is a new role. Our Congress actually created the role in 2019, and the first person started in 2020. I'm only the third person in the role. And why do they do it? There's a lot of people that do cyber within the Department of War, including in the Army. So Congress wanted to have one person they could point to that was ultimately responsible for coordinating and being aware of everything related to cyber and advising the Secretary of the Army as well as the Army Chief of Staff. So my portfolio is cyber, electronic warfare, and information operations. But what do we do in practice? It's a little of everything. The cyber budget comes through our office. Defending Army networks, how we're supporting offensive cyber, how are we doing supply chain security, acquisition. It is a unique role, and let me first say I'm the first political appointee, so I appreciate
between
President
us,
Trump.
how much is difficult to coordinate everybody around the table?
Well, it really reminds me it is a relationship business more than anything, because I don't oversee the CIO or the Chief Information Officer, nor do I oversee Army Cyber Command. But we have to work together, and I think that makes sense, because we ultimately want the Army to be defended against cyber threats, and when needed, leverage cyber against our adversaries.
So you are the one that changed the ecosystem to ecosystem.
It's always, the unique thing about the role is, the threat is always evolving. So for us, it's always making sure we're putting the right investment into cyber and making sure it's a priority. Because if you're leading an army or a department, there's so many things you have to worry about: infantry, artillery. But for me, it's how do we make sure cyber is always front and center and being considered with the range and options a commander would have.
Great. So how is the Army evolving to meet the current threats, especially in cyberspace? For 2026, what is your first priority as the one that see all the organizations?
So I came into the role really at a great time. So Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, he directed my boss, the Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll, to focus on 5 areas. 2 of the 5 relate to our office: cyber and electronic warfare, which is really extraordinary, because if you think of the Army, you're really thinking of a ground force. Most people wouldn't instantly go to cyber and electronic warfare, but I think that's really it indicates where the Army is going. The Secretary's main philosophy is called continuous transformation, realizing that conflict and battles have changed. So we need to adapt the Army to that future fight, largely which is, has a heavy cyber and tech component. So it's really incumbent on myself, the team, and the entire Army to make sure we're investing in the right areas, largely cyber, tech, and in electronic warfare.
And you are also responsible, or part of your discussion, to speak with the tech industry?
Yes.
To integrate into part of your nation's solution?
Yes, so a large portion of the job is being public-facing, whether that's engaging with members of Congress, the media, but certainly our industry partners. The Army can't do this alone. Much like many of the partners in the room here, many have figured this out and already have solutions. So rather than the military always reinventing, a unique capability, we should see what is out there, and more importantly, get it into the Army quicker. I'm not sure how it is in Israel, but there's horror stories of year processes to get a piece of tech. That's not acceptable.
Which, by the way, we changed it also. We thought in the beginning we can do everything by ourselves, but there are great solutions outside, so we still need a piece of unique solutions from our intelligence and classified solutions, and all the rest should come from the industry.
I think you're right. It's a balance. And I think the balance also continues as the type of businesses. We don't need just the largest of businesses. Yes, they have a role in the military. We also need small companies. So if you're a 4-person venture capital-backed company, you have a home in the military. And you need to be able to do so quickly.
It's a good news. A new home for startups.
I can't, while I'm the messenger here, I really can't take credit for it. It is really the Secretary of the Army. He comes from a VC-backed mindset, and I think this frustration that it might take 3 years to get a piece of tech to the soldier, and as current conflict has shown, 3 years, unacceptable. It might be a matter of weeks or perhaps days.
We are right now in the end of 2025. We plan our work plan for 2026. What is your priority for 2026?
Yeah, so people always ask, like, what's your number one threat? What keeps you up at night? And so let me first say, I'm an attorney by background, and we always like to say it depends or not give an answer, but I will give you an example. DCI, or Defense Critical Infrastructure, is something we're putting a lot of emphasis on. So believe it or not, the Army has 288 camps, posts, and stations. So that's a large footprint, and most of them rely on our private sector critical infrastructure. And to us, it is a national security concern, if water, electric was disrupted to the base. Perhaps we couldn't move people and equipment in a time of conflict. So it's really important for us to collaborate with the interagency, with industry partners, as well as hardening what we can on U.S. military installations.
So this is one of the priorities for 2026, the critical infrastructure that became a crucial supplier to the Army.
It's one of our top 4.
One of the top 4. Great. So we must talk about a little bit about AI. And everybody are listening to the buzzword AI, but how does AI play a role in a national security? And what is your plan for 2026?
So, I have to be honest. I am an optimist when it comes to artificial intelligence. So I've been actually studying AI for cyber for the past, let's say 4 to 5 years. I like to say before it became very mainstream and popular, but I say that sincerely because people are concerned with how adversaries might use AI. I think that puts more of the burden on people like us and for defense to leverage AI. I think that the question should be, how do we better use AI for defense as well as offense? Not only being afraid of its potential negatives and then aggressively regulating or trying to slow it down. I think we need to experiment, especially in cyber. And I'm not saying our AI cases for like the enterprise or how we're leveraging it to help on a day-to-day basis. That certainly has value. I think sometimes we kind of overlook how the warfighter can use it. Ultimately, it is a piece of tech and something that can help a warfighter. So we are speaking about AI on the side of defense and offense. Can you give an example of adopting a defense AI solution? Yes, certainly. And I hate to always use the excuse of being mindful of what's classified and what's not, but I'll give you an example. So we had a commercial partner we were working with to develop something they already offered, and we were able to customize it for the Army. And basically, this allowed us to have a continuous monitoring solution with a nearly 90% success rate. And some people are questioning, well, gee, does that mean it missed 10%? No, what it said was, that is a great adjunct to a defender on keyboard, and it actually had more success in some cases of identifying unique enemy tactics that potentially a human operator might have missed. And that's kind of how I see AI. At this stage, it's not a replacement for a human, but it can certainly help that defender or operator on keyboard and make them even that sharper or that much more successful. You coordinate let's say, the classified organization. So there is different prioritization between all of them. Again, how you create the ecosystem around the table? It's something fascinating because we know that in Israel, the Shin Bet, it's a different role from the Israeli Mossad and from the army, and we call it in Israel the piano. Yes. The piano that we are sitting together and trying to decide what is our prioritize, how it look like, given the unclassified situation for that. Yes, so I would say I have not worked in a prior administration, but what I can say, at least in the Trump administration, there is strong unity among our leaders in cyberspace. I'd go as far as saying I'm personal friends with most, if not all, of the cyber leaders in this administration, which I think is key. This is a relationship game. I shouldn't see this as being competition with CISA or energy. The question should be we all want to better protect our nation. In my case, we want to make sure the Army is secured. How do we do so collaboratively? And I think that leadership starts with the top. We saw the White House release its national security strategy I think just 4 days ago. Partnerships are very key, and it made it clear, as one nation, we're going to move forward with our partner and allies to protect the homeland and defeat enemies around the world. Something to, let's say, we have almost 30
seconds, something to our audiences?
No, I would just say, first Cyber Week here, truly great to be here, and I will be around, so I'd love to try to meet as many as I can. Do see the Army as a partner. If you're a private or a commercial provider of solutions in the audience, there is a potential home for you here in the U.S. Army. Don't be mindful that you don't fit that traditional norm. If you have an innovative product, do consider us, and that is very much a part of continuous transformation in the U.S. Army.
It was amazing. Thank you. See you tomorrow in the Resilience Day.
My pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Lyndon.